Today, we're going to learn what makes up a world-class Wattson and how you can become one. And what better way to learn than to hear it from one directly. This is botspike. Starting Apex back in Season 8, botspike has since racked up over 5,000 hours.
I put a lot of time into Apex, but a lot of the time I wasn't focused on improving myself at all. So almost everything I've learned is just being a dumbass, doing something, and then never doing it again.
So he didn't become a top Wattson overnight. And before I reveal his methods, we're going to take a quick look at his past and pinpoint the time where he really started to improve.
I used to just push everything no matter what. I play for clips, right? I've always played for clips. And that's why I realized, like, if you push everything and you're an idiot about it, you die a lot. If I just didn't push half the shit I pushed, kill grinding, I could have halved the time I was playing.
While it seems obvious to not just push everything, there's so many Apex creators who appear to do just that. So that's what botspike did. He got caught up in the mindset of, the more fights I have, the more experience I get. But that's not necessarily true.
Sure, it's a learning experience, but it also is like, you don't get anything out of it. And you're wasting like so many hours of your life on just running in and dying like an idiot when you could just not run in and then take a smarter fight and then learn better because you did it properly. You learn it faster because you learn that's the way to do it rather than that's the way not to do it.
Keep in mind that it's always a good idea to go back and review how you lost and what you could have done better. But the core of what he's trying to get at here is
learning the way not to do things is really good, but when you could learn how to do it first try, I feel like it's much more efficient.
So the first thing that botspike changed that really set him on the path to improvement was his mindset. And I think that's his foundation. Shifting from a more fights equals more experience mindset to one of mindfulness.
Being mindful of what you're doing helps a lot. Just thinking about like what you're doing and why you're doing it.
To be mindful is to think about the why. For example, when you're in game, ask yourself, why am I fencing this door the way I am? Why am I placing my gen in this spot? Or why did my fences work in that last fight? If you consciously think about the why, you're going to improve at a faster pace because you're more aware and will develop a deeper understanding of everything you do, as well as what doesn't work and what does. But a foundation is broad, so what did botspike build upon it to narrow his improvement even further? He developed and mastered his strategy and play style. If you've watched botspike before, you may have noticed a pattern in the way that he plays. He's a big fan of luring people in.
And that's how I play most of my fights, is I try to make it so that they think I'm bad and then they push me and I win. And that's my main playstyle, is making people think I'm bad.
Botspike typically plays solo no-fill, and anyone who's played like that before knows that it's difficult to win with raw skill alone. So he explained to me how he stays a step ahead of his opponents.
I only fight if it's really far in my favor or I know how to get it in my favor. Because I can, of course, make them think I'm bad and they push me and then they push me into somewhere that I know what I'm doing.
There are multiple ways that he lures enemies in. Sometimes he'll shoot in the air to get their attention. Other times he purposefully takes damage so that opponents push him. And sometimes he'll do some sneaky tricks, like pretending to walk away to give a false sense of security. But this strategy has a pretty glaring flaw in it.
If you can make them think you're bad, and you actually are bad, they're gonna win, you know?
Botspike doesn't really have to worry about this flaw though, and that's because of his mechanical skill as well as his techniques. One of the most impressive things that botspike does, and what makes his gameplay fun to watch, is his ability to place down fences in crazy combinations at lightning speeds. At first glance, it may seem like he's just randomly placing the fences down and getting lucky, but that's not the case, because over time, botspike created, tested, and named his own fence combinations to use in different situations.
So I have like, imagine like a data bank of like a good like 100 like fence combinations. That's how I kind of see it.
But before he showed me some of his combinations, which I'll share with you, he taught me a trick that every Wattson player should know. He likes to call this technique waterbending.
I call it waterbending personally, because imagine you do a little fence thing, right? You fence an enemy, and then you need your fences back. If you just press Q and then spam right click, you can pick them all back up instantly. And that's how I imagine like waterbenders would be in Avatar. They take their water back, then they attack, and they take their water back, right?
It's a simple technique. You just press Q and then right click, and you'll pick up fences in the order you place them. However, if you have a closed circuit with 3 or more fences, you'll have to pick up one of the fences normally, and then reconnect to the fence line in order to waterbend.
I don't think I've pressed E to pick up a fence in like literally like 2 years.
It's not like this technique is unknown, but having a name attached to it can make it easier to plan out what you want to do.
I know what I plan to do. Sometimes I don't think about it. Like if I'm doing like a hook fence, I just do it, it just happens. But if I plan on making like a play to like 1v3 a fight, I'm thinking like, okay, so this is gonna happen, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And I have names for everything, so I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna hook fence that guy, I'm gonna wall jump over him.
Botspike mentioned hook fencing, which was the first fence combination that he taught me. You place one fence under you, and then you place the others out to the left or to the right. This is great if you're trying to fight someone who's on the outside of the door. Another one he taught me is fence shoving,
which is where if someone opens a door, you can fence past them and into the door. As long as there's a fence inside, it doesn't matter if they close the door. If there's a fence inside, they're screwed. Because if they don't see it, then you're able to fence through the door.
Next is the pillar fence, which is what Botspike typically calls fences that go around something, because it's normally done around pillars. For the rest of his fence combinations, you're gonna have to subscribe to him, because Botspike does plan on making tutorials in the future, revealing more of his techniques. But his fence techniques aren't the only impressive thing that Botspike does. How he utilizes his movement in fights also contributes to his success. One of the flaws with Wattson is that when you're setting down fences, you're completely vulnerable. But Botspike mitigates this vulnerability by sliding, wall jumping, fatigue jumping, super gliding, and any other movement tech that makes him harder to hit. And he doesn't only do it when he's setting fences. He uses his movement constantly to outmaneuver his enemies and give himself an advantage. I mentioned earlier that he typically plays solo no-fill, and in that mode, it's easy to get overwhelmed when you're being swarmed by multiple enemies and take massive damage. But just because you get fried doesn't mean that you've lost. Whenever Botspike gets overwhelmed by enemies and needs to retreat and heal, he uses something called a heal route, which are routes to get to a safe spot inside or near a building that's occupied by enemies.
I think being mindful of it is what makes it so powerful. Say you're playing, like you have no clue what a heal route is. You know, like, oh well, I guess, you know, if I take damage, I might go over to this area. But you don't know that that's like a good strategy that works. You just know that it's a thing that you might do at some point. You don't know that, oh yeah, every time I'm in this building, no matter what, I'm going over here. If it's safe, of course.
In other words, if Botspike takes too much damage and is playing in a building, he knows the spots that are typically safe to heal at, and how to get there. But that's not the only thing he knows.
I have like a more version of that. I have a heal route, but for everything else that isn't healing.
He has a heal route, a fence route, and he has fence setups for every building in the game. He controls as many factors as he can, which is why baiting, trapping, and then eliminating enemies is his strategy and preferred playstyle. But just because he knows some heal routes and created some fence techniques didn't mean that he was instantly as good as he is now. Practice is necessary for improvement. He practiced in Kovacs, improving his overall aim. He practiced in live matches, finding what didn't work and what did. And he practiced in the firing range, perfecting what worked to the point where his fence techniques became reflex.
Most of the fencing stuff I do is like reflex. Like a lot of it, you just like, it just happens.
Just like how you don't think about moving forward, Botspike doesn't really think about placing fences. This allows him to focus on other aspects of the game, like considering what would happen if an enemy just appeared in front of him.
Everywhere I go, I know what I would do if there was an enemy that just appeared in front of me. I know that like if I'm playing right here and there's an enemy, I play this thing and do that, right? And then he's just dead because he's fenced. Like there's always something I can do wherever I am, and if there isn't, I just know get to wherever I know how to play. Like if I'm here, I get shot at, I'm gonna run towards this and then do what I did over there, or I'm gonna fence around it. Or if I'm here and the 3-sec pushes me, I'm gonna run over here, put a fence in here, and do, or put a gen in here, do a full 3-way setup here. Putting this middle one allows me to play from either side of either door.
The core of what he just described was practice, as well as the final key to the triangle: experience. He practiced his fence techniques to where he could use them anytime, and through experience, he knows when to use them. And he got this experience mostly through playing solo duos.
I think 3,000 hours, I would only ever solo queue duos.
3,000 hours is a long time. But remember that in the beginning, Botspike said he wasn't totally mindful when he was playing. He was just kill grinding. You probably won't need to spend the same amount of time to get the same results, because Everyone learns and improves at different speeds. And something that can help you specialize your improvement is the game mode that you play.
No filling trios, no filling duos. They focus on different aspects of your gameplay. Like if you suck with positioning, it'll be a lot easier to solo queue duos. That's something I didn't realize that I had issues with until I started playing trios. Because like my duo clips are pretty good, but I never had any positioning. I mainly went off, if I fence this guy, I win the fight. If I don't, I just lose. Solo queuing trios improves you as a player. Solo queuing duos improves you as a character. It improves your character and your skill on that character.
I'd never heard this perspective before, and it makes a lot of sense. If your positioning is bad, you're going to find yourself in situations where multiple enemies are shooting you at the same time. But if your positioning is good, you'll know how to force the fights separately. If you've seen my VOD review video, you've already seen a breakdown of how botspike does this, but I only did an overview. There's actually a couple of things that I noticed that didn't make it into the video that I think you should know if you want to improve as a Wattson player. In the first clip, as he's retreating from two advancing enemies, you can see how he tries to break a fence and then attach his own to the other node. He fails, but still makes the motion. This means that he's not only aware of the enemy nodes on the ground, but he's also thinking ahead about how to use them and not just reacting to what's on the screen. A good Wattson player should be trying to think at least one step ahead of their opponents. Another thing I noticed was that he puts nodes down in front of doors frequently. He's setting up the infamous door trick, which, if you're an aspiring Wattson, should be the first thing you learn how to do, and you should do it often, to the point that you don't even have to think about it. But does any of this info actually help? Well, watching a video isn't going to instantly make you the best player you can be. A good portion of this video really focused on improving as an overall player, not just with Wattson.
Most of the stuff I'm teaching you isn't Wattson specific. Most of it is just improving at the game. In any way imaginable, it's just mostly improving at the game.
It's my hope that this video serves more as a kind of guideline. A rough step-by-step guide for aspiring Wattson players to follow, or to just take inspiration from. Because sometimes to improve, we just need a little guidance. A point in the right direction. The clips you're seeing on screen aren't as flashy as botspikes, but that's because they're all ones that I've done. And I don't think that I would have improved as much as I did without the knowledge that botspike shared with me. So I believe that this info helps, and it's my hope that this video helps you to improve, just like I have. Please consider subscribing so that I can keep making videos that I'm passionate about.